Hello, welcome back to Well Doing Mama. My name is Stephanie. I am the mom of 8 kids ages 21 to 5, and we've been homeschooling for 17 plus years. Today, I'm going to be continuing my Homeschool 101 series, and I'm going to be talking to you about picking your curriculum. This is a big important part of homeschooling is what materials am I going to use? Now, number one, you do not have to go out and buy a whole bunch of curriculum. However, I find that the easiest way to make sure that I'm meeting the goals that I have for our family. Can you do it by piecing things together? Yes. Have I seen people do it well? Absolutely. I have a friend that does amazing at it. Have I seen people fail royally at it? Yes. So I'm going to focus today on picking solid pre-made curriculum and how you can do that for your homeschool family. So, first of all, you need to make a list of the subjects that you want to do. Where did my paper go? Okay. A notebook like this is lovely. Why? Because it's pretty, and pretty things make people happy, right? We like pretty things. Okay. Then you can open up. I have a few things I've written in here, so I'm going to open up to a blank page. You are going to write down your subjects. Now, it's a couple of choices in how you do this. Actually, I would do it 2 different ways. I would write your subjects going down this way and your children across, or your subjects across and your children down. If you only have 1 or 2, this is a very easy sheet of paper. If you have a whole bunch, you might want to expand it into multiple sheets of paper. There are 4 basic subjects that you should at least start with. That is math, English, science, and history. Math, English, science, and history are your 4 basics. You should be covering those every year. Then I add in electives. Now, I typically do some kind of Bible. You may just do this as family devotional time. You may have a set curriculum. You may rotate around what you do. That is fine. Then you can put in other electives. My kids all do piano, so that is one of their electives, and I want to put that in so that they have time set aside for that. Other things that my kids sometimes do. Sometimes they have a logic book. Sometimes I have one doing Nebraska history right now because we live in Nebraska. You might want to do whatever state you live in. Maybe you want to add in a geography workbook. Let's see, what else have we done before? I have lots of things I like to add in. Now my mind is going blank. But you can add in, maybe you want to do an art history. Maybe you want to add in some art. You can add in, I suggest you keep your curriculum you use. So that is what I do. At least start with the 4 basics, and then if you want to add in some electives. Look at different methods. So I mentioned Charlotte Mason is one method. Classical education, a literature based, like a Sunlight type curriculum. Online, where you're doing almost everything online. Becca and Bob Jones have online. I know there's like a Celis, and there's probably some other we've never used online. Textbook, where you use textbooks or workbooks, or a mix of things. So maybe you love some of the Charlotte Mason morning basket type things, where you would do a little bit of art history and a little bit of handicraft and a little, I don't know what else she does, I'll be honest, a little geography. And you go to, I know there's, I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head. But there's several websites and curriculum companies that have little sets of things that you can buy. I'll talk about morning time here in just a second. Classical, maybe you go to Memorial Press and you just buy their kit for the year. But you may want to mix it together and do a little bit of classical things and then some textbook things, which a lot of classical is going to still have some textbooks in it. Or maybe you really like literature based for some things, but then you really want a good, solid, certain type of textbook for math. It's okay to mix things up. That's why having your subjects written out makes sure that you are hitting the core things. For language arts, that typically is going to include your writing, your reading, like learning how to read phonics, literature, spelling. I think those are the basics. So some curriculums have them all together. Like I use the Good and the Beautiful for language arts for elementary school. It is all together. Some do not. So maybe you like IEW for writing, and then you use Fix It Grammar for your grammar piece. And the IEW has some spelling already built in. So you're like, okay, this covers. Then you would need to add in some literature to read for the year. I like to as my kids get older, so like middle school and high school, we tend to focus more on literature one year and writing another year and grammar all through. So you can kind of do what works for you, but you do need to cover those core things and make sure your kids are doing all those things. The best method. So you're going to say, what? Well, which method's the best? The one that you're actually going to accomplish. I love some of the literature-based curriculums. I think they look so neat. I cannot sit and do that. I do not have the time to do that. So I'm not going to pick those. That's just not going to work for our family. But I can work in a nice literature book here or a special literature book there that we enjoy. I have my kids reading good literature. I personally, for language arts, choose The Good and the Beautiful because I can get it done and it does a good job. Obviously, you want to do a good job. Most curriculums, if you start them and you do them like they're written and you finish them, you will have a solid education. When people get in trouble is when they kind of cherry pick within a curriculum and they miss key concepts. So the one that's going to get done and the one that you can afford. So for instance, for math, I can't afford to pay for the online math classes. It's just not in our budget to pay for it. However, I have the ability to teach the math. So I take my time to make sure I've learned the math. And once you learn it for one kid, you're good for the rest, right? Like I have kids every other year doing it and actually have. So I can keep up on all the math that I'm doing and I can help my kids as they need it. If you don't have that ability, you might have to sit down, and I've had to do this. I have to do this with my co-op classes. I have to sit down and spend a couple hours studying out physics or studying out algebra again because I don't remember pieces of it. You have that ability to stop and study something out too. And so you might have to learn things if you can't afford to pay for an online class, or maybe you pay for an online class. All these are options. So much of the curriculum is written to the students. And so it is totally accessible for parents to learn with their students or for the students to learn. But the key is that you need to be able to get the curriculum done. You need to actually be able to accomplish the goals that that curriculum sets. And that's why we have walked away from some curriculums that I actually liked the way it was set up. But time-wise, it just took so much time that I did not feel it was worth the time that it was taking from our family. Okay, so you're going to make a list of your subjects. You're going to look at different methods so that you can start kind of piecing together what's important to you. You're also going to look at, are you doing any co-op or outside classes? So there's a variety of different ways that somebody means co-op. Ours, for instance, is moms all there helping and working with their kids, and moms have to stay. Some are more like drop-off classes. Those are typically going to be more expensive because you're paying for somebody else to teach your kid. Nothing wrong with that. And there's things in between there. So look at that because that may pick your curriculum. So in ours, we do history and science. The history and science curriculum are picked by a co-op. So I don't need to think about those curriculums. So that saves me some time. Then start picking your basics. Pick something solid. I really like the christianbook.com website to start parsing through. They'll send you a catalog too, and the catalog's great to look through. If you have a homeschool store, you can go in and look at some curriculums. That is excellent. Also, a lot of curriculum companies have great websites. So like Master Books has their own website where they have their curriculum listed and samples and things. The Good and the Beautiful has samples listed. Also, YouTube videos where people will walk through. I have quite a few where I've walked through different curriculums that we've used, and you can see what that curriculum looks like. So start by picking your math and your language arts, science, and history. Start with your 4 basics. It's fun to start getting into a lot of the fun things and the more exciting. Pick your basics because those are the really important. For our electives or our things other than the basic, I often like to pick things that we can do as a family because I like to have some time that I'm with my kids together. So maybe it's adding in some literature. Some people do morning basket, which is a more newer word. Well, I've heard it for quite a while, but it wasn't at the beginning of homeschooling, or beginning when I started homeschooling, I guess I should say. Morning basket, we don't do one, but we've done one before, but we do it before lunch. But if you wanted to pick like a variety of things to kind of go through with your kids, maybe some art history, maybe a hymn study, verse memory, a Bible story, you can put all those in one basket, take half an hour and just kind of work through some things and have that little family time. So a lot of times when I do electives, I would like to pick things that we can do as a family so that, or as a group. all my kids don't do them together. I might do something with my high schoolers. I might do something with my younger kids, something with my in-between kids. I kind of rotate that around. But I have to keep it reasonable to what I can do. If I put too many things that I am leading my kids in rather than them doing more on their own independently as they get older, I will fail because I'm setting myself up to not have enough time, which will kind of go with planning your schedules too. Everything does not need to be taught in 1 year. If you are great at like doing a little bit, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, your kids can get a great knowledge that way. If you're somebody who more wants to deep dive into it, maybe you do a deep dive in art history 1 year, and the next year you do a deep dive into hymn studies. Those are all fine. We add logic most years, and a lot of times it's just a real simple workbook, but I don't have them do it every day. So maybe they do it twice a week. They do piano. That needs to get done almost every day to get the consistency and the practice. I highly recommend that you pick your curriculum and you stick with it for a year. Don't go, I'm going to do this. Oh, well, that doesn't seem to be working. I'm going to switch around. In my entire 17 years of homeschooling, I've only switched curriculum in the middle of the year one time. And that was legit. We were struggling with a kid learning to read. And I kind of picked a bad one to start with and then switched partway through. So I recommend highly that you pick something and you stick with it because you need to see how that actually progresses. Most curriculums are written to progress in a certain way and either spiral around or have a mastery approach, and you need to stick with that. Let's go through those 2 words. Spiral curriculum. That introduces a topic, and then you will review it repeatedly and kind of add to your review of it throughout the year. So you get introduced, and then it just kind of spirals around and adds to the learning. A mastery curriculum is just like hit really hard and you're drilled and drilled on it until it's solidified in your mind, and then you move on to a new concept. And sometimes it'll still be reviewed here and there, but it's not reviewed very much. So some kids do better with one or another. Some parents do better with one or another. I'm really enjoying a spiral approach because it's a little more gentle and I feel like it keeps the review fresh in my kids' minds. Okay, but stick with your things. You can supplement or add, but if you're constantly switching curriculum, you're going to have huge gaps in their education. And that is not healthy or good for anybody. You're going to end up with some gaps in their education because you can't teach everything to everybody in 12 years of education. So there are things they aren't going to learn, but you don't want to have that because you're constantly flip-flopping around on what you're doing and you can't solidify and you're not focused on getting your work done. Okay, so make a list of your subjects, start looking at different methods, decide if you're doing any co-ops or extra classes and then start picking. And we kind of talked about that a little. One thing I like to do is write, like, let's say I'm looking at language arts for my 5th grader. I'll write language arts, 5th grader, and I'll start writing down all the different ideas I've come up with, price points, and maybe even some pros and cons, and then I'll start narrowing it down. Honestly, once you find something you like, you're not going to necessarily have to go through this every year for every subject. I don't do that anymore. We almost always buy the good and the beautiful. And then for high school, I have to switch things up a little because I do some other things. But you don't necessarily have to do this every year. Maybe you do that math for my 2nd grader. So when you're starting, you're going to really have to do some research. Christianbook.com is my favorite website to research on. RainbowResource.com also has really good curriculum choices. However, their site's a lot harder to navigate. So I do recommend that the Christianbook.com website is really great. And then the websites for the specific curriculum companies. If all of it completely and utterly overwhelms you, one option is to go to a website like Masterbooks and just buy that year's program. I'm going to buy my 3rd grade curriculum. I'm going to buy their whole set and I'm just going to use it for this year and then go from there and figuring things out. And that is totally fine. Do not hesitate to do that if that helps you get started on homeschooling. Most curriculum companies also will have, what are they called? Placement tests. So you can see what your kid knows and where your kid would place in their curriculum because every 3rd grade isn't the same. And that's okay. So there you go. Make a list, start filling in your list with the things you want. You can look at the different methods. The one that works best is the one you will actually do. Doing the work is what matters and getting some things done. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks for joining us today. Please leave a comment if you have something else you'd like me to talk about or you have any questions. Please hit the like button and subscribe to see more videos about what we do.